Class of 2021, what a time. I gotta say, it's a tall order to put a bow on this Darden experience, which is probably said every year, but maybe a little extra this year. I mean, what type of tone do we go with in this speech? Nostalgic? Vengeful? How about fatigued and downtrodden? I think we've all been there in the last calendar year. Sappy and blindly optimistic doesn't seem to hit the mark. And if I close with reach higher, farther, further, or any variation of dream bigger dreams, you're all free to throw fruit. Larry and Perry were kind enough to place it under your seat. It was left over from lunch. Well, let's let it rip and we'll see where we net out. You may need the fruit regardless. We knew that entering business school that these 2 years would be a challenge. And the past year was probably a little bit more than we bargained for. On this momentous occasion, we could dwell on the last year's frustration, uncertainty, anger, and loss. But the pandemic also opened opportunities to be selective about what we gave ourselves to. We were forced to forego some of the superficial, albeit fun, interactions, and in doing so, we're pushed to forge deeper friendships with smaller groups. These intimate groups required more vulnerability from each other and for ourselves. If I'm being honest, probably more introspection and depth than I would volunteer for, but I can say with assurance that being part of this community made it better. Not great. Would I order it off a menu? But better. We did it together. It wasn't pretty. We won ugly, with side chats in class, in small gatherings, in remote Darden Cup events, and social planning which confounded the leadership of Ivy Gardens. Together, as a community, and everyone here is part of it. Some may not feel that intimacy. Some might feel as though there were missed opportunities, that they left something on the table, or that maybe this whole business school thing was a bit of a folly. I think that's normal. You're seen. You're heard. I've felt that way. Isolated and a little overwhelmed. Second-guessing decisions that are too far past to reverse. In our last lecture, Laleen drew our attention back to the first day of class. We shared happy memories and humorous moments, Robert Gex's overly cheerful introductions, Samir's appetite for irreverent humor. But there was one thing we didn't really touch on: intimidation. As I remember it, class introductions went something like this. Jimmy Wilson, naval pilot with a background in government contracts. And I thought to myself, oh, that guy's a badass. Then Mika Sullivan, financial expert coming from the Philippines. Another badass. Sheen Patel, international consulting and analytics experience. Badass. Amanda Wiggins, background in prison education reform. Badass. Stephen Mann, PR and marketer from New York City. Badass. Tim Wills, acquisitions and valuations for 3M. Badass. I'll pause and say that this could be repeated 335 times over. This class is teeming with accomplished, intelligent, kind people. 335 badasses. And I want to emphasize that trio of characteristics, in particular the kindness. I mean, have you met Paul Gallagher? But I digress. On the first day of class, we went around and I offered what felt like a meek declaration of analytics and automotive experience. And the prevailing thought was, shit, maybe I'm in over my head. And then class discussion commenced, and what played out was stilted at first and fluent within 15 minutes. Students offering diverse perspectives, challenging each other, and pushing for a more comprehensive understanding. I raised my hand, I got in the mix, and the perspective shifted to, okay, maybe I do belong here. For you, maybe this moment didn't come. Maybe it's still coming. I can say confidently that no one is here by accident. Everyone here is exceptional. And if you're still sitting, waiting for your moment of residence and validation, keep in mind, this isn't the end. There are people in our crowd today that will find happiness and fulfillment out of the gate. There will be people who find success and maybe a little less fulfillment. We have in our midst late breakers and those that will bomb out and change direction, finding that what they pursued at Darden isn't at all lined up with what they need. And there will be at least someone who got everything they wanted while they were here and will find themselves completely lost within 12 months. I'm familiar with that lost place. Many of you know my story, but in short, almost 5 years ago, I made a fundamental change to the way I live. At the time, I had a choice to stop drinking or face the near certainty that my path was headed for maybe jail, maybe homelessness, maybe just a life in lingering self-destruction. To be clear, that decision had been sitting on my desk since the time I was 16. But on the morning of July 28, 2016, we decided to make a choice to stop hedging. In the time leading up to that day, I was adrift, and that feeling hurts. Knowing the path you're on is headed to hell in a handbasket, but not being able to muster the courage to try something new. It was hard, but not necessarily bad. I needed the pain to push me to grow, to make bold decisions, to take action. The paths we tread will be innumerable. All of them will be great, valid, and educational, even if they don't always feel that way. It's a big, long game we're playing here. And if you get off pace, I recommend stopping and looking inward. There's likely something in there that isn't being given its due. It's there now. Take a moment and feel that thing. For me, it's a tick in the diaphragm, knocking, waiting to be let in. Take a breath and embrace it. You'll need it. We're leaving school to a world that feels chaotic, on the verge of reckoning. Sure, the market's blowing up and your crypto wallet may pay your student loans, but to me it feels like we're at a precipice. Outside of COVID, we've seen a year with police violence affecting our Black and Latinx communities. 292 police killings just in 2021. Xenophobia, we watched from TV or out our window as extremists invaded the capital of our nation, while some in power looked the other way or even endorsed it. Racism, institutional and overt acts of racial violence, especially against members of our Asian American, Native Hawaiian, and Pacific Islander populations. Homophobia and transphobia with transphobic legislation cropping up all over the country, and continued challenges to human rights, women's rights, and immigrant rights. These challenges are not new, but they have surfaced in the last year in overt and unavoidable ways. And it would be easy to say our community is isolated from these events, to say it doesn't happen here. But it does. Students and faculty of the AAPI community have faced harassment. International students have been held out of the country and forced to question their safety while here. Students of color, women, LGBTQ community members, and all those who share intersectionality with these groups face daily challenges ranging from microaggressions to overt offenses. So for me, the question becomes, what do we do as we move forward? As an individual and a collective. It's going to take more than a tweet, more than an Instagram post. It's going to take more than reading a book about your privilege alone in your apartments. And we learned this year that platitudes and emails of conciliatory remarks are not going to turn the tide. That's not to say education isn't important. The humility to learn is incredibly important. Hell, social media support is important too. But these means are familiar, comfortable. It's natural to hope that they're sufficient, but to my eye, we need more. We need the people of this community to stand up and to take action. We have in this community a myriad of skill and talent. We'll need all of it. We have people on their way to stations of high influence and impact. We'll need that too. Though I warn you, the action required may not fit the company culture that you find where you arrive, often separate from the one they touted in the pitch deck. The call to higher action is intimidating. I know. A chorus of, "What can I do? I don't think I'll do it right. Maybe I'm in over my head," rings out. Maybe not unlike a first day of school. So again, the question becomes, what do we do? Raise your hand, get in the mix, find something you can impact, and engage. Start local, your office, your neighborhood, your friends. Make a deliberate effort to help those in need and to put your values into action. What starts stilted and awkward at first will be fluent sooner than you expect. I can't tell you what this action looks like, you know better than me. But I can say that when I'm feeling lost, uncertain about what the next step, that tick in my diaphragm is awfully helpful. If you listen to that thing, you may find that it has the same appetite for action, to climb out into life, to sprawl and to grow. Foster that growth. It may very well be what separates making a difference and talking about making one. It may be what separates us from finding fulfillment and trudging from here onward. And you may find that more often than not, making a difference and finding your fulfillment are in harmony with one another. I have every confidence that the members of this group will rise to the occasion. We will be agents of change wherever we go. And when, inevitably, you run aground, you'll have a community to pick you up. Thank you to everyone gathered here today. To our administration, it was a tough year. As I said, maybe more than we bargained for. It featured more scrutiny than ever before. It required more creative thinking, more communication and difficult communication than ever before. Your effort did not go unnoticed. It's my hope that this year provided a renewed appreciation for the importance of honesty, transparency, and effective communication. And understanding that empathy pairs well with action. And that when the stakes are high, it's both most challenging and most important to uphold these values. I'm confident that you'll carry forward with the same appetite for growth that is developed in the student body. Thank you to our Darden support staff, especially IT and dining services, who made this hard year feel a little bit more like home. Perry, I see you. To our faculty and teachers, thank you for your guidance, for your compassion, for helping us past hurdles seen and unseen. To our learning teams, shout out 52. You picked us up, pumped us up, and together we made a family at Darden. And finally, to our partners and families, thank you for your support. Our accomplishments are exactly that, our accomplishments. We share this triumph as we have shared the challenges in pursuit. You are with us, and we are better for it. Thank you to the class of 2021. You've intimidated me, pushed me, taught me, consoled me, and set me on a path of action. It's been an honor and a privilege to learn and grow with you over the past 2 years. As we move forward, stay close. We'll need each other. All my love, thank you.